Hey everyone, welcome to the Rochford Files with your host Andrew Rochford, coming to you live from the Denver area today on Friday, August 13th. We have at least two Friday the 13th a year, and I've decided that I've got to start to put more effort into trying to grow on the YouTube side of things, so that's why I'm doing this here today. And also the fact that I've just started, I got my Streamlabs set up on YouTube. As you can see, I've gone with a bit of a different look for the YouTube channel, just because it should have a different type of look for this. And also, sorry to those YouTube subscribers who want to see me, who rely on me clipping content from my shows, but the issue is I didn't get anything from Wednesday's shows because of the fact that there were so many missed frames on it that I'd be frozen for like not just seconds, but minutes. Like there, I went through the playback and saw there were times where I'd be frozen for like 3 to 5 minutes, and there'd just be no way I could upload that video to YouTube. So the only thing I could really do with that would have been to just upload audio. But for now, that's the best I could do. I've still been slacking on the whole uploading full content to Patreon, just so viewers can see everything, even the stuff that I didn't consider quite worthy enough for YouTube. But the good news is I'm going to be focusing more on trying to build up YouTube growth for a while. So Twitch will be on the back burner for now, especially with the fact that of the difficulty of running smoother streams on that platform with my Wi-Fi. And I'm hoping that it's easier to maintain a stable stream on YouTube. So it's today's show will feature a lot of celebrity-based political content, as there were other stories I could have worked in today, such as the infrastructure versus budget reconciliation battle that is taking place in the House, where progressives are supposedly holding ground on trying to force a budget reconciliation to go through before the infrastructure. But I'm going to hold off on getting deep into coverage on that. That way I can just put my focus towards, and that way I could give a more comprehensive start to finish type of coverage once the fallout from that is finished. But overall, I know I also said that I was going to end up doing a reaction video, specifically to debate, but I think I'm probably not going to follow through on that now. Last night I was away from home too much at nighttime to provide that reaction video to a recent debate that happened in left media space. I mean, I may still consider doing it at some point, but it maybe tomorrow or Sunday, but as of right now, I'm not sure if I will. But for now, let's get into today's rundown on the Rochford files. So we'll just start off with something light before we get into more important stories. Oh, the South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone told the Colorado governor Jared Polis that they've tentatively agreed to purchase Casa Bonita, the Colorado landmark in Lakewood that is both a restaurant and a beloved entertainment center. The conversation took place Friday morning and was live streamed by Governor Polis's office. Stone and Parker grew up in Colorado, and they're arguably some of the most well-known celebrities to come from this state of Colorado. And they've also known for making it nationally popular through their show South Park, which, by the way, is about to celebrate its 24th anniversary, and it is part of Viacom CBS. They said Friday that their plan to buy the restaurant has been one in the works for a while. The restaurant hasn't been open to diners since the COVID-19 pandemic started and has filed for bankruptcy protection. The group saved Casa Bonita has been working to do whatever it can to get the restaurant fully operational in recent months. Right now, the arcade and gift shop are open with tours of the facility being conducted throughout the day. We know that there have been a lot of people in Colorado that love Casa Bonita and have been working on this, and we're excited with everyone in making this all the place we all wanted to make it, said Parker, wearing the Rockies t-shirt during the conversation with the governor. Polis asked the creative pair if they plan to improve the quality of the food offerings. The restaurant is known for having great sopapillas, but not much else worth writing home about. Both said that is a priority. I think everyone knows the potential of what that place can be, and we certainly do. And I think it's going to be an awesome Colorado thing. First off, I'm just going to say this right now. I have never been to Casa Bonita, and I have also never had the interest of going there. And one of the things that hasn't appealed to me about that is the fact that hearing how poor the food is by and large, and that's probably been one of the big reasons why I've never really wanted to go to this restaurant. So the first thing I'm curious about is how much South Park influence is going to be put into this restaurant, because I imagine that there will be at least some slight renovations, and wonder how many South Park elements will be implemented when they officially take over. And the other thing is, I think it would really help for the restaurant standpoint to improve the food quality. Even though they've been very successful and a landmark of the greater Denver metro area, I think they could really do more with that place if they make the food better by and large. And in my opinion, they really don't have to do much to improve things on the food front. I think that as someone who would say that I'm going to give you an example of another local food chain where people do not think very highly of the food, Taco House. And there's like 3 locations. There's one in like Southwest Denver, also one in Lakewood as well, or around 14th and Wadsworth, and their third location's in Littleton, on Littleton Boulevard. So that's an example of a restaurant where I think the food is good enough, and just meeting that bar would probably help a lot to get people to come back regularly for the food and not just the show, even though, as we see, there's plenty of gimmicky restaurants who have been very successful even without having food quality to speak of. So I think it'll be interesting to see how much that place changes. And now that you got South Park creators taking over, you're just gonna, maybe that'll create a bit of an extra tourist appeal. Now that they're actually gonna be involved in running that restaurant, as opposed to just the appeal for making the pop culture reference on South Park. And even though I haven't gone yet and I haven't had interest, maybe I'll check it out after they make some alterations. Oh, next, it's time to get into this recent interview that this podcast, this clip from Jameela Jamil. She talks about, and she has a couple guests, as you can see here, Amy Schumer, Chelsea Handler. And what I had known from her previously is she has Jamil has given some advocacy towards like socialist and left-wing policies. Back on her show last year, she gave a monologue in favor of defund the police and explaining what that really means. So I do think that's a positive. But you're going to see she is going to lose some of her goodwill for what she had kind of built as being someone supportive to left-wing policy.
However much we may all hate capitalism, and however much we may acknowledge the evils of capitalism that do exist, currently, money is freedom for women. And I know that that is the dirty and wrong and unsocialist and un-Marxist thing to say, but being able to know that if I have an emergency, I don't have to rely on a man, and that I can make my own decisions, and that I as a businesswoman can hire other women and people of color and people from backgrounds that don't always get hired for jobs, gives me freedom, ultimately. However much...
Yeah, you can see... I want you to look at the faces that Chelsea Handler and Amy Schumer, when they first... look how blank their stare was when she first broke out the terms Marxism and socialism. Then you knew when Jamil kind of made that 180. Yeah, they wanted... You could tell that both Schumer and Handler wanted to be like... But they had to contain themselves because what we do know about those two women is they're both two of the biggest fake woke celebrities that we have. And the fact that those two women are a great example of the problem of what the current state of feminism is, which is pretty much boils down to female capitalism. And the fact that Jamil is now throwing away that principle of being supportive of socialist Marxist left-wing policies. And her defense is pretty ridiculous. And I guess even though she wasn't added, she had people DM her the result. That it was being shared. Way to remove all context. This is about me being able to have the money to run a company that solely exists to support and platform activists, create free mental health content, and change policy to create policy to help the mental health of minors. Hardly girl boss shit. My point was that if we don't do it, white billionaire men won't. So while we work towards socialism, which is a way off, let's put the money into the hands of those who can help others, rather than bow out and hope the greedy white male billionaires can help the marginalized. Then Ryan Wentz, with his response, so we should work towards socialism by becoming capitalist, exploiting others and accumulating wealth. I'm confused. No, we should amplify the voices of socialists by creating content by for them and creating content for humanitarian issues that need addressing. These things sadly cost money to make. You think white men are just going to save the world and give their billionaires away their billionaires, huh? Below is the milquetoast content that you created for about Palestine. Maybe set this one out. And as this image is going to show, this is going to be pretty much your both sizing that you've seen a lot from celebrities. And that we can't just let that be adequate. Because we have seen a few celebrities make stronger stances on Palestine. Celebrities, entertainers, athletes like Kyrie Irving, Dua Lipa. But we've seen a lot of them make the afraid to step out of that pro-Israel box. But there's been a few who have been strongly right on that issue. And so that was pretty bad. And this is the shield. I can still continue to act as a capitalist. So please, don't hurt my ability, because these white billionaire men over here won't do anything. And that's emblematic of what liberal feminism is. Because you got two women right here. As I said, they're both fake woke feminist, in Amy Schumer and Chelsea Handler. And even though Amy Schumer tries to have the right stance on like Black Lives Matter and whatnot, but you can't take her seriously. And you know why? It's because she'll never come out in criticism of Uncle Chuck Schumer. Because if Amy Schumer was really serious about advocating for Black Lives Matter and helping out marginalized communities, guess what? She would actually have become critical of her own family in office, and that would apply for anyone, in my opinion, who does have family that works in politics. And that if you're going to stay mum or silent on them, then you're probably not going to direct them in the right direction, in my opinion. And that's the problem that you have with these celebrities like Chelsea Handler, Amy Schumer, is the fact that, their politics just essentially revolve around being anti-Trump. And the reason why this makes Jamil look worse is the fact that you thought she was one of those more left-leaning celebrities, but now she's just proven that she's not much different than them, because she is trying to defend the right to act as the rest of the elite capitalist class. Guess what? Eat the Rich doesn't just include all those rich white billionaire men. Eat the Rich includes Oprah Winfrey as well. And it just goes to show you that there's so many celebrities out there who try to get their fan base to believe that they're in favor of a socialist platform. But when it comes down to it, they just end up going to the side of the Democratic establishment. And that was painfully clear following the Bernie Sanders campaigns. But there's more from her. And more from Ryan continuing to go in on Jamila. Well, she tried to escape that thread by just starting one on her own timeline. But as you can see, Ryan Wentz would not allow that to happen. So let's start from the beginning. Of this thread here. My point was that if we don't do it, white billionaire men won't. So while we work towards socialism, which is a way out, let's put the money in the hands of those who can help others, rather than we bow out and hope the greedy white billionaires help the marginalized. And he says, so we should work towards socialism by becoming capitalists, exploiting others, and accumulating wealth. This is so true. As I said, when I quote tweeted the original post of the video, is you really think that the way to get us towards socialism is to capitalism harder? Then this is pretty much what her defense of being a female capitalist is. I'm more girl lost than girl boss. You're quite literally a millionaire. And if we've learned anything recently, or these past few weeks, especially with Rihanna becoming a billionaire, LeBron James becoming a billionaire, close to it as well, is the fact that when it's all said and done, even the celebrities that you like more also exploit people in order to get there. And it doesn't matter how much more they work for their wealth. in comparison to billionaires that pay them, they prove that they also exploit people on the way to becoming richer and billionaires. Spending my Wednesday night being told to shut the fuck up by Jamil for criticizing her cowardly stance on Palestine. As I already read that tweet, so I just decided to just go read the quote tweet. Capitalism is absolutely the core of evil, and it has so many ties to white supremacy, but it's not going to be sorted out overnight. It's going to take old straight white men, 1%, to tap out of capitalism first for the rest of us to even be safe on basic levels realistically. Come on. This is really the dumbest fucking arguments that I've seen for how we're going to get billionaires to do their share to help improve society. If anything, it's going to take hard, direct action on our part. And you think, and this boils down to her sentiments being, if we ask nicely, maybe they'll do it eventually. Then if they say no, we just gotta be more persistent. And this photo from a Instagram post. Congrats, Kamala Harris. May you bring more rights for healthcare for all, for the safety of trans people, for reproductive rights, prison reform, police reform. Please, please, get those poor children and their parents out of the cages at the fucking border. See, this is how you know that you can't take someone like her seriously. If you're really believe that Kamala Harris is capable of doing anything like this. She's the top cop. And you think you've got a chance of hell getting any of this from her? This just shows you how deeply under serious she is. She's the top cop. She wants to keep prisons full, and continue to carry on that part of capitalism where we have the cogs in place to keep it going. And this also shows naive she is, because one of the liberals' favorite arguments in favor of voting for Joe Biden is they believe that they would really address the cages at the border. And all we've seen in terms of immigration is Joe Biden has now decided to, pack the cages even more, even though we still have problems with COVID. Open up another one of those caging facilities. He's going to deport records amount of immigrants. And it's not just brown people. It's also black people as well. Specifically Haitians. So this is why you can't take fake socialist, faux aggressive types like Jamil seriously. And she tries to say that she's trying to advocate for mental health. Slaying the capitalist beast through content and advocacy. How revolutionary of you. And the fact that what also makes her unserious is if you believe that Amy Schumer and Chelsea Handler are going to be a good guest to push that forward, because when it comes down to it. They're worse than you. They're neoliberals who are going to drag down the effect of that so-called goal you're trying to accomplish. And this tweet here, I'm down for the cause of socialism, but men are going to have to give up their wealth and power first. History has proven what happens to women when only men hold those cards. Absolutely fine to dismiss me as a capitalist pig for feeling that way. You said hiring people from marginalized communities, thereby exploiting their labor, gives you freedom. Am I missing something? Exactly. And tell me how this differs from any other type of capitalist. Sorry, if you pay someone a good wage for their labor, someone with skills who isn't able to use them because they're discriminated against, where's the exploitation? I am marginalized and get hired for TV jobs and paid. Am I being exploited? And I'm sure this is the top argument that any type of millionaire would make, saying, oh, I have to work more for my money from these billionaires that aren't going to give up their place in society just yet. So, in the meantime, let me just do the same thing because it's more important that you go after them first instead of me. Nope, that's just very unserious behavior on your part. And why we should not fall for celebrities like Jamil, because they're going to misguide you in the wrong direction of revolution. Because she's a milquetoast progressive liberal type who ultimately is always going to tell you the way forward is to just keep voting. And that is extremely naive. And the fact that if you challenge her on the revolution front, I bet you she is going to argue in favor of civility. And even though we would rather not have a violent revolution, it's fortunate that it's likely the only way that we're going to have to get out of capitalism, because these billionaires, and it's not just white rich people, are going to make a peaceful revolution impossible. So you can't let yourself get misguided by people like her who advocate for being for all the left-wing policies you're for, but they're absolutely going to lead you astray and down the wrong pathway towards getting any of those goals done. Because in reality, we got to be a lot stronger on the direct action front. And we don't have people on the inside who are going to really fight for us. So that's why we've got no other option other than to strengthen ourselves from the outside and force these capitalists into bending to our will. Because it's not going to happen when we follow people like her and other content creators on the left who try to advocate for staying engaged in electoralism, especially when they're so-called progressive candidate. So, overall, Jameela Jamil is just a deeply unserious person at the end of the day. Alright, this is going to be an interesting story to share with you all. You know, MAGA hates it when their Supreme Court justices go against the MAGA platform and rule against them. Supreme Court Associate Justice Amy Coney Barrett struck a surprising blow against those seeking to defy COVID vaccine mandates on Thursday when she dismissed a challenge to a college's mandate without comment. A group of 8 students at Indiana University sought an emergency injunction from the Supreme Court against their college's vaccine mandate. In her role supervising the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, Barrett reviewed the motion and denied it. Barrett chose not to defer the matter to the full 9-justice court and offered no explanation for her decision in a move that could have wider implications for the vaccine mandates across the nation. The plaintiffs, represented by conservative attorney James Bopp Jr., have failed to convince judges of the district and circuit courts of the merits of their argument. Bopp filed an emergency application for an injunction on August 6th, which Barrett dismissed on Thursday. That decision could be an indication of how the Supreme Court may rule on the legality of vaccine mandates. The students argue that the university's mandate violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Barrett, who was appointed by President Trump, is likely to have disappointed conservatives and others opposed to vaccine mandates or taking the vaccine in general, but her decision is consistent with precedent. Though Barrett didn't offer an explanation for dismissing the application, U.S. District Judge Damon R. Lichty, who is a Trump appointee, pointed to the 1905 case Jacobson versus Massachusetts when he ruled against the students in June. In that case, the Supreme Court upheld the power of states to enforce compulsory vaccinations. The disease in question at the time was smallpox. Later rulings built on the precedent by Jacobson, including 1921 Zoot versus King, in which the court held that the school district in San Antonio could exclude students who hadn't received vaccinations. Judge Lichty noted in June, to answer the question today, the court travels back in time to 1905, a time before the modern tiers of constitutional analysis, strict scrutiny, and rational basis, and one rampage by the smallpox epidemic. In that year, U.S. Supreme Court issued a leading decision in answer to the question. He said a 3-judge panel of the 7th Circuit later upheld Lichty's ruling. All 3 of those judges were Republican appointees. Barrett's refusal to grant emergency relief or to allow the case to come before the full court may be an indication the court isn't willing to revisit a 100-year-old precedent. While the court has a 6-3 conservative majority, that doesn't necessarily mean a majority exists to overturn Jacobson or even hear a challenge to settle precedent. as more school districts, colleges, and employers began requiring vaccination against COVID, further legal challenges are possible. What if Barrett's recent decision is any indication that may prove unsuccessful? So I'm just going to say right off the bat that I am against the idea of these vaccine mandates, but it's conditionally on conditional terms. And first off, it's because none of these vaccines are currently FDA approved, and that's the condition of why I'm against it. But if these vaccines that we have right now were eventually FDA approved, then I would not be opposed to making this a mandate. But I'm going to say that this is the problem with the authority of making these mandates in place, especially in terms of like vaccine passports and whatnot. It's because you're going to further add to this whole two-tiered system in the United States of the haves and have-nots. So this is going to make it harder for like the poor rural people and black people to be able to move forward in society. And when it comes down to it, it makes it, that's where the problem lies with me, is the fact that they're not meeting these basic conditions. And another major issue I have is the fact that we should have way more vaccination options available at hand, because we've only got 3 options right now: Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. And what we should really have is at least 10 of these vaccines at hand to use, if not more. Because the major problem I have is if you really want to be advocate of the free market, then we should have more options of vaccines, not less. Because this exposes the hypocrisy of this so-called free market healthcare. If you've only got 3 vaccine options, and the fact that there's certain reports saying the ones that the United States isn't allowing to be used here, such as like the vaccine created in Cuba, Russia, may even be better than the ones offered here. And I assure you that instead of having a country where maybe a bit more than half of people are going to end up vaccinated, if you gave these people more options, you would increase the overall total. And that reciprocation, being more reciprocal of the vaccine options, would honestly lead towards even more of the world getting vaccinated as a whole. But this flat-out selfishness of the United States, keeping the vaccine away from poorer countries and mainly only sharing it with other rich countries, specifically ones that share more of the United States capitalist beliefs. And I'm pointing out the problem with the ideas of these mandates. is that I don't think you're giving the people enough options to where it may even be okay to do. And the fact that we don't even know if these vaccines are fully safe in the long term, even though, well, yes, they are going to help you protect you better from COVID in comparison to someone who isn't vaccinated. But the thing is, we're seeing with these new variants is vaccinated people are still more than capable of passing on COVID to other people. I just think that this ruling overall is pretty surprising, and I do, even though I do have some disagreements with the idea of vaccine mandates, especially once you branch out on a larger scale. It is kind of entertaining to see maggots lose it a bit because she isn't 100% on board with the platform and ruling in a way that pleases her supporting base. And what we've seen over the past year or so is Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh have all had their moments of when they've dissented from the MAGA platform. I just have some major concerns about the whole two-tiered society that is being created between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, and that the way that the Biden administration and the CDC is being very wishy-washy on the alternative measures to try to limit the spread of COVID isn't helping these things, especially when we are currently going through another spike of COVID, and their only response to this is to just get people vaccinated while not allowing people the free market of vaccinations to be used at their disposal. And that's why I think that this could end up being problematic somewhere down the line. Yeah, depending on the amount of people who continue to insist on standing their ground when it comes to getting this vaccine, because there are people out there who expose themselves as very authoritarian when they say that, when they support the ideas of like a society which blocks out the unvaccinated. And I don't think it's fair when we don't even have enough vaccines to help a big portion of this society who is still skeptical on these specific options that are being offered in the United States. Even though there are also ones outside of the United States which have their flaws as well, such as AstraZeneca, which I know is being offered in Canada, and even if that were available here, that would still not. There'd be certain other variants that wouldn't necessarily improve the skepticism. But the point is, we should really be making sure that we have as safe as possible is vaccines, and until we know how safe these really are in the long term, I just don't think that's fair to do just yet. Less than a week ago, so let's get into this recent decision from the Biden administration. We had some progressives who were cheerleading this idea that Joe Biden could pretty much be pulling a lot of troops out of Afghanistan by September. And we'll see why it looks so bad. Less than a week after pulling 2,500 U.S. troops out of Afghanistan, the Biden administration announced today that it will send 3,000 new troops. Oh, in essence, you've added a net gain of 500 more troops. Way to go. This is what happens when you have premature celebration progressives until they prove to follow through on their actions and over the long haul and not just a short amount of time. So this is pretty sad if you ask me. Because those of us on the left who have been talking about this issue with Biden when it comes to pulling troops, some of our thoughts were, prove us wrong. Because we were like, oh, no way that's going to happen. The chances of that being followed through on? Not a chance. And all this did was prove those of us on the left right. But the pathetic part is we had a couple people scold, Crystal Ball and Kyle Kulinski scold us to their left for not being able to be willing to take them at their word. When it comes down to it, no way I could trust them. So let's the good news is I do not have to go through a lot of trouble to find footage of Crystal Ball and Kyle Kulinski aging bad on it, because Unapologetic has already done that for us. So here's what Crystal Ball said when this news eventually came out about 4 months ago.
So, look, I don't think anyone is more wary or cautious around this belief that this will actually happen than us. We're clearly looking for all the signs of, like, where's the out? Where could this go on the rails? Where could he change the decision? I have to tell you, every word that he said yesterday, every bit of the reporting that has come out has been extraordinarily positive and extremely encouraging. Yeah. Obviously, we're going to keep our eye on it. You have no...
Oh, man. Crystal Ball has an extremely naive moment. Because you're thinking someone with her position, her milquetoast leftist arguments, that she wouldn't fall for this shit. But she just proved that she did, when she should really know better than to fall for the lies of a person like Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.
idea what kind of an assault he's going to come under. All kinds of ugly things are going to be planted in the press. All kinds of arguments are going to be made. There's going to be a bipartisan effort to try to undermine President Biden's decision here. But from what he said yesterday, he appears very adamant. And there is a really revealing piece in Politico about exactly how he came to this decision. And he really did have to go over the top brass at the Pentagon. They actually have a quote here that basically says, look, Anthony Blinken is really running the show. He's Secretary of State. He's the one who really made the decision. So it's a return to civilians actually having control and actually being the ones who lead the charge, make the decision, and move forward with it. Again, we are going to keep our eye on this to make sure that they don't waver now that they have taken this bold stance. But everything he said yesterday was spot on.
To me, this is just like when people fell for Joe Biden's advocacy on the public option, and even worse in that last debate against Donald Trump when Joe Biden honestly had a very strong statement in favor of the $15 minimum wage. But we've seen how fucking quickly he abandoned the fight for the $15 minimum wage. And this is just very embarrassing on the part of Crystal Ball to fall for this. And go hook, line, and sinker for that Politico article propaganda. This is a very bad look for her in that moment, because if there's anything that everyone should know about politicians, is that to not trust their word, but to trust their actions. What they say doesn't mean shit. It's all about their actions. And it's been a big problem as of late, especially with, for example, squad sycophants, is because they still defend their rhetoric as opposed to the actual, as opposed to condemning the actual action. And this just exposes how bad Crystal was naive and fell victim to the propaganda that someone like her, being independent of mainstream media, should really know better than to do. So I'm going to move further down the line to Kyle Kulinski and expose him for what he had said on this pulling of the troops from Afghanistan.
Kyle Kulinski, and I'll play that clip and I'll come back and break it down.
And he says it's going to be a full withdrawal. Now, in his argument to back up his decision, listen to this. A reporter asked him, was it a hard decision to make to decide to pull out of Afghanistan? He says, no, it wasn't. It was absolutely clear. We went for two reasons. Get rid of bin Laden and end the safe haven. Bin Laden's been dead. So he's correct. We were told that was the reason. We gotta get bin Laden. Bin Laden attacked us. We gotta get him and destroy the safe haven for Al-Qaeda. Guess what? Bin Laden's been dead for a long time, and there is no more safe haven for Al-Qaeda. According to our own intelligence agencies, there's less than 100 Al-Qaeda operatives left in Afghanistan. And those are old numbers. Those numbers are 5 or 10 years old. So he's correct. And again, this is something that you hear on Secular Talk all the time. I actually don't think Biden or one of his staffers is watching Secular Talk or any of the other lefty YouTube shows, but I do think that this shows there was actual thought about what we're doing there. Why are we there? Why are we there this long? What's the point? What's the definition of victory? Which gets to the next thing. So he said in his speech on this, quote, no one wants to say that we should be in Afghanistan forever, but they insist now is not the right moment to leave. So when will it be the right moment to leave? 1 more year? 2 more years? 10 more years? 10, 20, 30 billion dollars more? This is Joe Biden saying this. Joe Biden. So my takeaway from this is, he did just sort of get my hopes up a little bit that he actually means it, that he's going to pull out on September 11th. Because if he didn't really mean it, he wouldn't be making such good arguments for that position. So, I mean, now the question is, and this is going to sound conspiratorial, but it's true, is the deep state going to let him do it? Is the military-industrial complex going to let him do it? And just how committed is he really when there's going to be vicious pushback? So I'm very skeptical, but you want to know what gives me a little bit of hope? Here's what gives me a little bit of hope. The reaction to this from the establishment. They are losing their shit. They've gone crazy. They really have. And it's not just Republicans, and it is Republicans, but not just Republicans. It's not just, intelligence agencies or the deep state or the military, although, again, it's them too. It's also Democratic senators. Menendez was like, I don't think I like this. Shaheen was like, this is a bad idea. And so the fact that this is getting backlash from Republicans, from the military, and from Democrats leads me to believe maybe it's real. Maybe they know something that I don't. Maybe, they could tell that Biden's serious about getting out. But if he pulls through with this and does it, I give him massive credit. And that will be part of his legacy that's positive. If he actually withdraws every troop from the Middle East, it's positive.
And the problem with this, Kyle, is the fact that you're willing to give him prepaid credit on a thing where no politician of any type in this Congress deserves any type of prepaid credit. The fact is, instead of calling their bluff, y'all just went went all in, and you just lost the game on this one.
And he'll go down in history for that in a positive way. And I'll give him massive credit.
All right, so all of the previous points that I've...
This is pretty sad. And this is the problem that we have with some of the people that we have in this media space, is the fact that we've got people like Crystal, like Kyle, who tell us that we're being too hard on the politicians who support the policies that they say that we want, and the fact that they embarrassingly fell for Joe Biden in this instance. And these are two people, if they're more principled, they should absolutely know better not to do this. Not to give the prepaid credit, not to trust the propaganda of the mainstream media, even the ones that reveal more of the inner workings of the Congress, like Politico and Axios. But it's sad that these people, that they're more professional media personality, progressive media personalities, but when it came down to it, they decided that this was the right moment to actually trust Joe Biden and the administration. And look where that got them. It's like wanting to finally getting that date with that person that you had been hoping that would happen with for so long. And then you two finally agree on a night to go out and meet somewhere. Then you know what happens? You get stood up. And the problem is, you know better, and you probably saw some signs along the way with this person from your past knowledge to prove that you would flake. And they got so caught up in the emotions of the moment that they pretty much ignored all the past history, and they got stood up. They got left crying alone in the restaurant. And if they were handling this the right way, they would have been forcing them to, they wouldn't have been giving the Biden administration prepaid credit, and would be forcing them to prove their actions and to hold fort on those actions as well. So while Kyle and Crystal decide to fall victim to being extremely naive and giving undeserved trust to politicians, this guy Jimmy Dore, he'll never fall for that. And he appeared on Tucker Carlson last night to talk about that.
Police department was going to defend the country from the Taliban. Right. That turned out not to be true. The second we announced a pullout, things fell apart. The capital could fall to the Taliban in just a matter of days. Today, the Pentagon announced it's sending 3,000 troops back to Kabul to start evacuating the U.S. embassy there, helicopters on the roof kind of thing. The Biden administration is now begging the Taliban to allow that retreat. So why didn't we know this was going to happen? And the people who train the Afghan military, where are they tonight? Jimmy Dore is the host of the Jimmy Dore Show. He joins us. Thank you, Jimmy Dore, for coming on tonight. You got to wonder, 20 years of training the Afghan military by the Pentagon, you know, what did they do with all that time and all that money?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting. I mean, if we just imagine if we weren't in Afghanistan for the last 20 years, the Middle East might be unstable. So, I mean, you remember Trump tried to pull us out. By the way, this war is bipartisan, right? As right. All wars are. Noticed. They're very bipartisan right now. The military-industrial complex has a stranglehold on both parties. So Trump was trying to pull us out of this war because it turns out you can't just invade other people's countries, set up a Starbucks and a McDonald's and think they're going to be just like us. They're not just like us. We've had fathers and sons, and pretty soon we're going to have grandsons fighting in Afghanistan. So it's a nice way for Americans to make multi-generational memories, I guess. But what happened when Trump tried to pull out, if you remember, Congressman Crowley and Cheney, Liz Cheney got together, bipartisan, and they put a stop, and they said Trump wouldn't be able to pull out unless he met these certain criteria, which we'll never meet. So they made sure the president, the commander-in-chief, could not pull us out of Afghanistan. But now here is Joe Biden, who claims he's going to pull us out of Afghanistan. Now, why is he? First of all, as soon as he announced it, he started ramping up the bombing. I don't know if you know that. He bombed Shahid Anwar Khan High School and a health clinic that killed 20 people, a lot of them women and children. So he's ramping up the bombings as he's saying we're pulling out. And I don't know what that is, if that's dementia or what, but that's the guy who's ordering the strikes. That's happening right now. So let's just remember that they increased the military budget. So why is Joe Biden being allowed to pull out of Afghanistan? Well, because he's agreed to start bombing in Somalia. I don't know if you know that's happening. Joe Biden is now bombing the poorest people in Africa. Half the country are like 40% of the country are nomads, and Joe Biden is now bombing Somalia. So now he's occupying a third of Syria right now. So this never gets talked about, right? This never talks about. So he's just switching his imperialism, and I really appreciate you giving me a chance to come on and talk about this, because they'll stand up against imperialism at CNN or MSNBC or anywhere else. So I just want to say thanks for that. And what we need right now is a real anti-war movement to rise up in America to stop these wars. They gave Joe Biden an extra $25 billion to do war. I thought we're getting out of Afghanistan. Why does it need an extra $25 billion? And let's remember how much $25 billion is. $20 billion, they say, could end homelessness. So we just don't have the political will. Every pothole those $25 billion worth of bombs make make in another country is a pothole that's not getting fixed in America. We can bomb everywhere in America, but we can't feed our own people. I live in a democratically controlled state that's got a Democratic governor, and we've got people living under every bridge in California.
And that right there is an example of when you're actually principled on anti-war, and someone who isn't going to fall for false action that the Biden administration got a lot of people suckered into. And even though every time Jimmy Dore appears on Tucker Carlson, some of these faux leftists lose their shit. And even though they're going to move the goalpost and say, why didn't he talk about Medicare for all? Or talk about jobs? You gotta realize that one of the biggest things Jimmy Dore is about is being anti-war. And even though when he switched from Bernie Sanders in 2016 to supporting Tulsi Gabbard, it was because Tulsi had the stronger anti-imperialist message. And yeah, and even Dr. Cornel West, who appeared on the Fred Hampton Leftist with Nick and James Fauntleroy on Tuesday, acknowledged that Bernie Sanders is kind of weak on foreign policy. The difference is, people lose their shit when Nick says it, but are more in agreement when Dr. Cornel West does. And the fact that the one thing that these faux aggressives also like to talk about when it comes to these Jimmy Dore appearances on Tucker Carlson is the fact that Jimmy just helps further enforce Tucker's points. I saw multiple times where Tucker conceded to what Jimmy was saying. When he said war is bipartisan, he agreed. And that even if you don't believe Tucker Carlson is genuine in the moments that he allows his platform to be used with messages from populism from his guest. Guess what? When the guest is genuine on the issues of like populism and anti-war, you're gonna win people over when you do that. And even though I don't believe conservatives actually represent half the country, my belief is they actually represent like a third of the country. The point is, Fox News is still more watched than CNN or MSNBC or ABC News, CBS News, or any of the other among the other four major corporate media outlets. And Jimmy Dore once again is effectively getting these messages across to people who are normally right wing. And what you notice is, even with Fox News polling, they still support stuff like Medicare for all, $15 minimum wage, and the fact that it's also been proven that the Fox News viewers would support Bernie Sanders over any other Democratic candidate from the past two election cycles. And you're saying that it'd be a bad thing for people on the left to continue to take advantage of the Fox News platform. And if anything, the left isn't taking advantage of this enough, because the more that the left is able to capitalize on airtime from Fox News, it means that it's going to pull more of the right over on our side. And not only in populism, but hopefully over time that they'll change their way on the social issues as well. Because for me, it's not just good enough to be for the issues of populism, but the ultimate goal is to also get people on board with the social issues as well. I do believe I'm more of an optimist on that front, that you can also win the right over on certain social issues, and we just gotta be a bit better about framing these issues in a way that resonates with the right. So specifically, defund the police is one of the great examples of an issue where you can easily frame that from a right-wing perspective, and you'd ultimately get them on, have a chance to improve the odds of getting them to support that type of platform. Because what you see now is people will underestimate the amount of anti-war right-wingers that exist in society. But if there's ever a point where the left actually has a principled anti-war candidate, which has the spine to follow through on being anti-war, then you're just going to get more of the right on board with you than you would think. It's a reason why Trump got that extra amount of support he needed to get over the top with Hillary Clinton, is because he had the stronger anti-war message when he went against Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. So this is a good example of what you can do on the left and why we're not capitalizing on that enough. Because, let's be real, CNN and MSNBC just aren't going to give the left the platform in order to make that happen. There's really only two people on the left who can even score an occasional appearance on CNN or MSNBC. Those two people being Dr. Cornel West and Brianna Joy Gray. And there's no way that they're going to concede anything more than that. But Fox News, however, there's much more opportunity. Even with we've seen, in terms of the people on the left who have gone on Fox, we've seen people from the gray zone like Max Blumenthal and Anya Pomerapil make Fox News appearances in the past. Katie Halper, Kyle Kowinski has made a couple Fox News appearances. Even Nomiki Konst, even though she's not a genuine lefty in my opinion, even though the same hypocrites who are upset for who are going to lose it over Jimmy Dore being on there are not going to have that same energy for Nomiki Konst. The point is, we just gotta take advantage of the mainstream platforms that allow us to use our message. And if the one that's more to the right is the only one that's going to allow that to happen, then so be it. But this left-wing movement is not going to grow if we have some fake moral principle of, oh, we can't go on Fox News and on the platform of Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, or Tucker Carlson because we're just boosting their platform. When it should really be the opposite effect. When Tucker lets a Jimmy Dore on, it, in essence, weakens the right-wing platform. So next is going to be a clip from another Fox News segment. And just so you know right now, I do not normally do a lot of Fox News reaction clips. Just because that's pretty much a cheap, low-hanging fruit most of the time. But in this instance, I consider it a bit different because it's John Taffer, host of Bar Rescue, and that generally a lot of people who consider themselves left do tons of reactions and counter videos to these right-wing libertarian types. And they also tend to include a lot of Fox News clips in the process as well. Kyle Kulinski included. But I think this is a good exception to make to that. So John Taffer, the host of Bar Rescue, is gonna have an interview talking about with Laura Ingraham about the unemployment issue that is currently happening in our country. And from the right-wing capitalist viewpoint, they consider it underemployed. Let's see this video now.
I'm not an economic professor. If you get $800 a week unemployment benefits and you live with a partner who also is getting $800 a week unemployment benefits, $1,600 a week, Laura, $83,000 a year for that household in unemployment benefits. The median income in America is only $63,000. We're incentivizing people to stay home. What if we gave that additional unemployment benefits to employers to incentivize people to go to work?
Well, what if we just cut off the unemployment? I mean, hunger is a pretty powerful thing. I don't mean physical hunger, because people who truly are in need help. I'm talking about people who can work but refuse to work. But the government is...
Seriously, how fucking psychopathic do you have to be to cut off much needed assistance that people are going to need, as they're going to struggle to find a new job, and your idea is to let them starve as further motivation? Seriously, how fucking heartless is this shit? Because there's this right-wing mindset where you believe that most of the people that are currently on unemployment really don't need it, when it's in fact actually quite the opposite. It's just about everyone truly needs this assistance, and that it's going to cause some major problems in this country the moment that this extra assistance is taken away.
Is literally putting anvils in many ways on people's shoulders, either through the mandates, regulations, and now through free money, which obviously we're all going to, the piper eventually has to be paid. John, I want to ask you, though, about this idea of work-life balance, because look, no one wants to miss their kids growing up. No one wants to. You stay in the office your whole life. You never see your family. So that's really important. However, have we taken that a step too far when you think of, well, a lot of the millennials talking about, well, I need time for self-care. I don't know why I'm harping on that tonight, but the whole self-care movement is a little, I mean, my mother is not with us anymore, but she worked by the time she was 12 during the Depression. If she heard the self-care thing, I think her head would explode.
How pathetic and low do you have to be to use the death of your mom to justify your heartless, anti-human views of capitalism and justifying the exploitation of humans in this country who, by and large, have a garbage work and life balance, and the fact that you're pretty much discarding the idea of the need to have better mental health in this country. Are you fucking insane?
I think that's right. I have a friend in the military who trains military dogs, Laura, and they only feed a military dog at night because a hungry dog is an obedient dog. Well, if we're not causing people to be hungry to work, then we're providing them with all the meals they need sitting at home. I'm completely with you, Laura. These benefits make absolutely no sense to us. And on top of the impact of not getting employees and not being able to run our businesses, in my industry, we have meat prices are up 10%, chicken prices are up 15%.
No, inflation is going to kill business. I mean, that's the next shoe to drop. The Democrats.
Oh, you really think that this inflation is going to kill the business, and the fact that their ideology is so fucked up? The fact that you believe that the only type of person who could be a good worker is someone who's hungry, when evidence shows quite the contrary, that if you give humans basic needs taken care of, they actually have more incentive to try to do more with their life and try to aspire to be greater things in society, as opposed to when you try to force people into shitty work environments where the job market also plays its role by making sure that people by and large can only get into certain types of work, and that's extremely garbage. And this is what you get when your brain is full on capitalist mush. You only care about the flow of capitalism going as it's supposed to. You exploit the wealth of humans, you make them work way more, take away their life balance, you force them to have to make a decision between working roughly a 40-hour work week or getting those extra 20 so hours in order to survive a bit better. That's the reality of capitalism. And then the problem is their mindset is so distortedly fucked that they only care about making sure that the system is going to flow as it once was. they don't really want workers to own the means of production and actually have a jobs guarantee and the potential for an actual living wage, because all that they're really advocating for is to force these people back into jobs like McDonald's and and Walmart, where so many of their workers have to get government benefits because of how woefully inadequately paid they are. And they're going to fearmonger about inflation when, if anything, workers' wages have been so deflated that this wouldn't even be an issue if worker wages had just kept up with inflation, and you'd be making at least $20 an hour if that were the case. But no, they're advocating for you to go back to those chump wages, which could be as low as $7.25 an hour, because this is what those heartless, brain-dead, capitalist oppressors really want for you. And they don't give a fuck as long as they make profits, as long as John Taffer gets to have his fucking bars be successful and to continue to do his fucking bar rescue bullshit show, which we know that him caring about people and whatnot is really just an act to further enrich himself and continue to be this conservative shitbag at the end of the day. And that these people are so disconnected from the real solutions here. I know the real fucking solutions. That is to make sure the basic needs of people are met. Make it easier for people to find jobs. Not to cut off this unemployment and leave them out for high and fucking dry. That's completely counterproductive here. And once again, this further enforces the point that these people are not our best. They are sociopaths, psychopaths, and do not let these fuckers continue to say that they're the smart ones here, and that you have to trust these smart bullshit experts, because they absolutely aren't. Average people like me, like others, can pick apart these type of brain dead arguments. Let's see how they would handle life if they had to be hungry in order. If you hung hunger in front of them as a motivator to join a society where you're forcing them to be returned back to their worse off status pre-pandemic, when you're running away from the solutions, which I know, those same exact solutions, which I know Professor Richard Wolff would be telling us right now. And there's no way that these people, these right-wing capitalist sharks, are ever gonna do anything that would be truly right for the people without the pressure of direct action. Oh, before I get into my last couple segments for the day, I'm gonna be right back. Alright, back here on the Rochford Files with your host, Andrew Rochford. And even though this is another example of me not normally talking about Republicans, but I think in this moment it's worth going in on one. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia.
Representative Marjorie Taylor
waved off concerns over hospitals exceeding capacity due to COVID-19, saying we can't live forever. I've talked to local hospitals here in my district, here in my state. Yes, the waiting rooms get full, but guess what? The waiting rooms are full of all kinds of things, not just COVID. Greene said, but they're seeing about 30% of those numbers being COVID cases. She further said, while the media tries to tell us that hospitals are slam-packed with COVID, that simply isn't the case. Everyone needs to get back down to common sense and remember that, we're human, we can't live forever. We're going to catch all kinds of diseases and illnesses and other viruses. We get hurt sometimes, she continued. Hospitals around the country are struggling as they see a surge of COVID-19 cases fueled by the highly transmittable Delta variant. One hospital, Memorial Health in Chatham County, Georgia, told a local ABC affiliate it had to stop accepting patient transfers from other hospitals. Greene is in the middle of a week-long Twitter suspension after tweeting the vaccines are failing. The Georgia Republican defended her stance that the Food and Drug Administration shouldn't approve a vaccine and that vaccines shouldn't be mandated. Let's not turn it into a authoritarian regime that forces shots into people that don't want it, she said. This article once again exposes how much of hypocrites that your conservatives are when it comes to the issue of, pro-life. They expose that hypocrisy all the time with the fact that they do not care to help babies have their basic needs met. They only care about pro-birth. And they also have this logic of their such irrational belief of religion using God as a justification for enacting bad policy, having bad political beliefs that would overall better benefit the greater good. Like, for example, God doesn't want us to have masks on because that would hide our faces. Or if when you die, when you get sick from COVID, that just meant that, it's probably my time to go or their time to go. It's a thing of fate and you just can't mess with that. Seriously? And this is the problem with Republicans being so unserious about the idea of trying to put measures in place that actually help hospitals not get overfilled. The fact that they're so resistant to mask mandates. We can argue how much mask would help depending on the type of mask you wear, but I'm certain that they do help to some type of degree. And the fact that they've argued for this thing called herd immunity to kick in, but how well is that working when I'm sure that there's people out there now who've been COVID positive twice and now possibly 3 times with all these new variants coming out? How's that working out for you? Because what we're seeing right now is it really just to show you how fragile the hospital system is here in the United States. And this also in a way exposes the fact that we really just don't have enough hospitals, enough doctors, enough nurses, and just not enough of a healthcare industry in general. It's because look how little of a spike it takes to completely fuck up this hospital system. It barely takes a 1% death outbreak rate. That's right, it only takes 1% of severe cases to really strain and screw over our hospitals. And you want to come at me with these arguments about how low well, yes, the death rates aren't really that high, but come on. It only takes think about how little of severe cases it takes to really put a strain on our hospitals. And that's why if these Republicans were really serious about pro-life, they would be doing things to limit the spread of COVID, such as wearing masks in indoor places as much as possible, social distancing, probably trying to limit your amount of mass gatherings. Because guess what? This Delta variant is still causing some pretty big problems. And the real reason why we should be continuing to take preventive measures on COVID is not so much about deaths, because yes, we should by far most definitely at least have Medicare for all, because that would have prevented at minimum a third of these COVID deaths. But the real reason is so we don't put a strand on our hospitals. Because you know what? The negative snowball effect it's going to have, it's going to prevent people who struggle to get in due to their non-COVID related needs from having the opportunity to get into these hospitals. And this is why when taking safety measures for the greater good need to be about making sure our hospitals can still function. And yes, even if you're not vaccinated and don't want to get vaccinated, we should be making those people do the best they can to stay safe and not be contributors to spreading COVID. But the society as whole is just getting back to the pre-COVID status quo. And that right there is also playing a role in getting people these hospitals becoming overfilled. And this woman wants to make up this corporate communism, when corporate communism is one of the biggest oxymoron terms that COVID has ever had. Oh man. This is why this is a big issue here. And unfortunately, I'm saying it's bipartisan. In my opinion, both parties are contributing to the problems of overpacking hospitals once again. So even though I'm targeting Marjorie Taylor Greene's rhetoric here, it's because she has very hypocritical views from someone who considers themselves pro-life. And that's why we gotta make sure we argue for the right things here. And that also I advocate, I've adjusted my views on COVID and whatnot, but we gotta make sure that these hospitals aren't having trouble with overcapacity. And this is why, for me, we have to change the argument and the framing to, make it about the hospitals more than about deaths. Lastly, let's end off on more of a positive note here with this Britney Spears story. So there's some good news here. But also at the same time, we have to maintain cautious, be cautious and not be too over celebratory here. Because this could still go sideways, so to speak. Britney Spears' father, Jamie, agrees to step down from conservatorship. The turn of events is a massive win for the international pop star who has been under a conservatorship for 13 years, ever since Britney Spears placed his famous daughter under the court-ordered arrangement in 2008 when she suffered a very public breakdown. But in the last 13 years since, Spears has been fit enough to perform, tour, hold a Vegas residency, and earn hundreds of millions of dollars. Speaking up more than ever before, Spears has been urging the judge to remove her father from her conservatorship through blistering testimonies this summer, even telling the court she wants to press charges against her father for conservatorship abuse. She wants him in jail. Her father's decision is being praised as a major victory by the singer's new attorney, Matthew Rosengart, who he says he intends to investigate Spears' conduct over the past 13 years and plans to depose him under oath. Though Spears' father in Los Angeles Superior Court, this is response to the singer's petition for suspension, announcing his decision to step down. He would cooperate with the court on a transition, but did not give a timetable for his resignation. His filing also stated that he needed to wrap up certain matters before he can hand over the reins. When those matters are resolved, Mr. Spears will be in a position to step aside, the court document reads, but there are no urgent circumstances justifying Mr. Spears' immediate suspension. Spears' attorney cites the public battle with his daughter as his reasoning for stepping down, but states there are no actual grounds for suspending or removing him. Variety has reached out to Spears' attorney, Vivian Greene, for further comment. There are in fact no actual grounds for suspending or removing Mr. Spears as the conservator of the estate, and it's highly debatable whether a change in conservator at this time would be in Mrs. Spears' best interest, her father's court doc filed in Thursday states. Nevertheless, even as Mr. Spears in the unremitting target of unjustified attacks, he does not believe that a public battle with his daughter over his continued service as a conservator would be in her best interest. The filing continues, even though he must contest with the unjustified petition for his removal, Mr. Spears intends to work with the court and his daughter's new attorney to prepare for an orderly transition to a new conservator, as the court has likely surmised before Mrs. Spears' new attorney arrived. Mr. Spears had already been working on such a transition when Mrs. Spears' former court-appointed counsel Sanningham. This is a major victory for Britney Spears and another step towards justice, the pop star's attorney Rosengart says in a statement obtained by Variety. I announced in court on July 14th, after 13 years of the status quo, it was time for Mr. Spears to be suspended or removed as conservator, that my firm and I would move aggressively and expeditiously for that outcome. Rosengart adds, 12 days later, my firm filed a petition for Mr. Spears' suspension and removal based on strong, insurmountable legal grounds which were unequivocally supported by the law and all parties involved, including Jody Montgomery, Britney Spears, and her medical team. The singer's legal team states that while Spears stepping down is a major win for their client, they are still unhappy by her father's attacks. We are pleased Mr. Spears and his lawyer had conceded in a filing that he must be removed. We are disappointed by their ongoing shameful and reprehensible attacks on Mrs. Spears and others, Rosengart's statement says. We look forward to continuing our vigorous investigation into the conduct of Mr. Spears and others over the past 13 years, while he ripped millions of dollars from his daughter's estate, and I look forward to taking Mrs. Spears' sworn deposition in the near future. His statement concludes in the interim, rather than making false accusations and taking cheap shots at his own daughter, Mr. Spears should remain silent and step aside immediately. This summer, Rosengart had publicly called for Mr. Spears to resign, but prior to him stepping aside today, he emphasized that he would not voluntarily resign. Spears' father became sole conservator in 2019 after Andrew Wallet resigned from co-conservatorship. September 19, 2019, he temporarily relinquished his powers, and Jody Montgomery became the conservator of her person, meaning she is responsible for Spears' medical and personal well-being. Spears' father had remained the sole conservator of her estate, managing all of her finances and making a hefty sum of her annual multi-million-dollar earnings, giving that Spears has continued to record and perform regularly while under conservatorship. Many legal experts who are not affiliated with Spears' case have suggested that the elder Spears should remove himself from the conservatorship. A non-family member is typically preferred by the court in conservatorship cases. Sources close to the singer had previously told Variety that the first step would be to remove her father before any effort to terminate conservatorship altogether. Now that her father has voluntarily stepped aside, it remains to be seen whether the Stars legal team will push to end the conservatorship. Spears has said she wants to be let out altogether without evaluation. Legal experts have told Variety that this scenario is highly unlikely as part of the process to terminate a conservatorship in any case includes proper medical evaluation. Without Spears' father involved, the goal would be for the singer's conservatorship to work together with the eventual goal of safely getting out of a court-ordered arrangement. As an attorney for Montgomery recently said, we all need to focus on one thing and one thing only, the health, well-being, and best interest of Britney Spears. So overall, it's a good, positive thing that it's going to happen. Although the one thing that makes me a bit leery is the fact that it doesn't sound like her father is going to do it in a manner that would be satisfactory for her new attorney. And I think that he's going to hold this out and try to carry this out as long as possible before a strong, hard, concrete demand is made. That's the vibe that I got from her father's statement that he isn't going to willingly step down, and unfortunately I think they're going to have to force his hand on that. But let's also keep in mind that the other person in her conservatorship, Jody Montgomery, could possibly cause this to go sideways once her father, Jamie Spears, fully steps away. And the reason why I say that is there is room for her to be exposed, being just as bad in similar ways as her father. I would hope that wouldn't be the case, and I hope that Jody Montgomery will allow her to be more free if as the lone conservator, but there is still a danger that Britney Spears may not be as free as one would like. And I do hope that her new attorney will be able to help convict her dad of his oppressatory actions that he has had holding control over Britney Spears' life over the course of these last 13 plus years. Because what you're seeing is, the reason why this is important is because if Britney Spears can fully free herself from oppressive conservatorship, it will be a victory that could trickle down to other regular people who are caught in these oppressive conservatorships, which in fact should be the blueprint, the playbook to help other regular people in the event that they are stuck in an oppressive conservatorship, and should they sought to fight their way out of it and to have a person who allows you more freedom as a conservator. So just keep in mind that for now I'm going to be cautiously optimistic here, just because I don't think the ugliness from this case is completely over, and this will probably take longer to completely unfold in a positive way. But I am hopeful that Britney Spears will eventually work towards getting her true freedom back here. And hopefully she will also find doctors who will allow her that will approve her mental evaluation and fully free herself from having any type of conservatorship here, because that is the ultimate goal. And that's something to keep your eye out over the upcoming weeks or months, because this isn't quite over yet. But this is a good step of progress in the right direction here. And that'll be all for today's episode of the Rochford Files with your host, Andrew Rochford. And please click to subscribe to the show on YouTube. And I will be working hard to bring in a couple guests next week. I won't say who yet, but just know that I will be pushing at least for a couple guests who are supposed to be making their way to Denver next Saturday. And I would like to collaborate with both of them, specifically before they make their way to Denver next week. And also, please follow the Rochford Files Twitter page at a Rochford Files, and my personal Twitter account at NuglifeComrade, NUGGLIFE Comrade. And with that being said, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a weekend stream, but it will be on YouTube if it does happen. So be sure to keep an eye out for it. And I will definitely have some clips from this show for sure, because this has been a very smooth stream on my end. So that will definitely mean at least a couple clips from today's show in addition to this full stream to be on demand on YouTube.